I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Welcome to season 2 of my podcast, focused on the future, keys to building a profitable, sustainable, and impactful business. And I'm excited to be partnering with wealthmanagement.com on this. This series will focus on what firms need to embrace to ensure their growth and success for the future. And you'll hear from industry leaders and advisors on what is working for them. I have a great lineup of guests in store, and today I'm talking with Rita Robbins. Rita is the founder and president of Affiliated Advisors, a super OSJ serving over 100 advisors and with over 4.5 billion in AUA. She has been in the industry for over 30 years, and according to her LinkedIn profile, loves to assist advisors in building their dream practices. Well, welcome, Rita. Thanks for being my guest, and I am really looking forward to speaking with you today, and I'm excited to share your story with the industry.
Well, thank you for having me, Suzanne. This is really going to be so much fun. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of your podcast series.
Thank you, Rita. So I always like to start out with the same question, which is, tell us a little bit about your journey into the wealth management industry. More often than not, people get here by accident. So share your story with us.
Well, it's so true. I don't think anyone wakes up, at the age of 18 or 20 and says, I want to be, a financial advisor. But let me just start by saying I never actually was a financial advisor. So I'm like to think of myself as an advisor to advisors. But yes. I did, as you say, get here completely by accident. I was a professional equestrian. And one day I had a very, very bad fall. And I came back to a little house I shared with 2 other women. And one of them was just getting dressed to go to work. I had already been up for 6 or 7 hours. And I thought, wow, she's going to an air-conditioned office and she's not risking her life and limb every day. And so I literally, by accident, started to pursue a career. Well, I guess it was really just a job back then. And the first company I worked for was E.F. Hutton as a sales assistant to several brokers. And I was immediately captivated by the whole industry. Just won me over instantly.
Wow. So first of all, I love that you started out as an athlete, and, there's so many transferable skills from being really good in a professional sport and to transferring it over to being really successful as an entrepreneur. So E.F. Hutton, that was a while ago, right?
Yes.
So, and you were a sales assistant, and,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the people that I interview started out, kind of at the beginning stages of a career in the financial services industry at like maybe one of the like more entry level positions. So how did you move from sales assistant to, I love that you said advisor to advisors, but running your own firm and your own OSJ?
Well, way back when I had the industry, I really rose through the ranks in an operational avenue because that was the only thing that was open at the time to women. And I got to work at a very large branch of Payne Weber. And that's when I realized that I really wanted to be a broker. Unfortunately, there was, and this is hard to believe, there was a one woman per branch rule. My branch already had a woman. So I never had the opportunity to become a stockbroker. But as things unfold in a way that we can never always foresee, I met a great broker there who introduced me to someone who was starting the first independent broker-dealer. And I got to meet him, and he explained that he was starting a new type of firm that would allow brokers and insurance agents to get their licenses and work as financial planners. And so he thought I should get out of an operational position and move more into a sales and marketing position. So that started my journey to working with advisors on marketing and sales. And from there, I became a wholesaler with a major asset management firm, which was a job that I really adored. I spent my day working with advisors all over the country. And then about 10 years into that job, I had my daughter when I was 36 years old. And I decided I really needed a change of lifestyle. And the only thing that I really felt that I had my assets were that I just spent more than a decade learning from advisors what it took to run a successful practice. What were the traits? What were the habits? What were the outlooks? What were the perspectives that they brought to their practice to make it successful? And I had this idea that I could take that knowledge and work with advisors. And I started Affiliated Advisors 30 years ago last month.
That's first of all, it's not even that long ago about the fact that there was a one woman rule per branch, which is like just crazy. The fact that you had a great ally that introduced you to somebody that saw what you were capable of and gave you some direction of going more into sales and marketing, working as a wholesaler. I would imagine at that time too that there weren't that many women in those roles. And
No.
then just how you decided to start your own firm, which was way ahead of its time, due to the fact that you wanted to change your lifestyle because you were becoming a mom for the first time. So I think there's a lot of women out there that would be shocked to hear this, more our next gen women. There's a lot of women that are in our generation that are like, yeah, I remember those days. And it wasn't that long ago when you really, really think about it. It's absolutely crazy. So you've seen a lot of stuff over the last 3 decades working in this industry, and you've seen our industry evolve quite a bit along the way, especially regarding how this industry treats women. So from your perspective, what are the biggest changes that you've seen? And secondly, how has being one of the few women founders, and congratulations on your 30 years, by the way, that's astounding. How has that impacted the way you think about the way you run and conduct your business now?
Well, I have seen a lot of changes, and for the most part, I think they've been very, very positive. I still feel that we have a long, long way to go. Women are still getting sort of bottlenecked in that, middle management area. So, when you think about how many women are leading large financial institutions, medium-sized financial institutions, we have a long way to go. And I think that one of the biggest changes I have seen, though, is that, women are more confident about what they're doing. We are making space for ourselves and demanding a seat at the table. No longer are we usually the only ones in the room, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But, even just 6 or 7 years ago, I'm on an advisory board, and I remember thinking, like, this can't be that I'm still the only woman among like 30, men here. So I think that women are getting a lot smarter, a lot savvier, and maybe more willing to take risks. So I'm really encouraged by the number of women I see in our business who are starting their own practices, who are breaking away from business models that don't work for them, that are not embarrassed to say, I need to have some balance in my life. And maybe they're recognizing too, as is everyone, but more slowly, that this is basically at its very, very fundamental level a helping profession. And money is inherently emotional. There's just no getting away from that. And I think that women relate differently. I think we bring a different perspective to how we manage people, how we grow our businesses, how we market, and in some ways, who the audience and the demographic that we're trying to reach are.
Yeah, I think those are such important points. And I do agree with you. There's a lot more confidence now. There are a lot of companies that have realized the importance of having diverse individuals, women and others from underrepresented groups as a part of not just the organization, but a part of the executive leadership team. And I feel like the last few years, I'm seeing more and more women that are starting to run their own businesses, that have a seat at the table, like you said. And again, it wasn't that long ago where that was really an anomaly. I think there's a long way to go, but hopefully with podcasts like these, where we remember the times where things weren't so great, we reflect on them and what we can do better. And you are such a great role model for other women and showing them that it can be done. And especially, when you decided to become a mom and start your own business at the same time, which sounds a little like sounds a little crazy when you think about it. You have these two unknowns, right? And you're taking that on. But I think that there's a lot of women that can identify with that.
Well,
Um,
I should say my daughter was about a year old. And for me, I felt like the risk was that I was working at a firm that was not going to, or at the time, respect my duality, that I wanted to be successful and I loved the job and I wanted to do a good job. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that I had a 1 year old at home, and that responsibility and love and role was, at least equally important. So I think that I really I didn't start out with some well thought out business plan. And the risk to me seemed to be to stay in a role at a company where I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to be true to what I wanted in life, and be the type of person whose family was a priority. So I don't think it was I wouldn't say it was exactly a knee-jerk reaction, but it also, the risk to me felt like staying someplace where I couldn't be authentic to what I wanted out of my life.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective and way to look at it. I think sometimes women feel guilty and you really shouldn't, right? And I think that lesson is sometimes, things happen for a reason and different situations put you into different opportunities. So I think that's such a great perspective to share, and I hope it really resonates with a lot of the women and the men that are listening to this podcast. So shifting gears a little bit, right? This podcast is all about the future and what firms and individuals need to do to be successful now and in the future. So you work with 100+ advisors every day. So what are you seeing them focus on to serve current and future clients?
Well, I think two things that are going to consistently, currently, and will in the future consistently impact not only the direction, but our response is technology and regulations.
Mhm.
Both of these areas are hugely impactful along with changing demographics. So what I see happening is, first of all, technology is both a blessing and a curse at times. There's so much out there that can help advisors run more streamlined, profitable, proactive practices. And yet it's really challenging for a lot of advisors out there, especially those at smaller firms, to have access to this, to know how to integrate and adopt it. So I think that is, when we can talk about AI and how that is going to impact our industry. And actually, just for the record, I want to say that I think it will be hugely impactful, but I think that it will be impactful in helping, not in so much the client facing role, because as I said, I think that money is inherently emotional. And, AI is so wonderful in so many ways, but one of the areas that it really falls short is really being able to read emotions. I've read lots of articles about how each individual person, whether it's facial recognition, tone of voice, pace, cadence, that's the one area that AI is not going to excel at, is reading emotions. And I think that should be very reassuring for a lot of advisors, because while AI will undoubtedly become integrated into many parts of their business, that face to face with clients is going to continue to be a very sought after and a very, very necessary part of their job. So, especially as we move forward, I think one of the things that we're set up for is either going to be like the perfect opportunity or the perfect storm. We are looking at the largest transfer of wealth ever. By 2030, Gen X and Gen Y are going to have 47% of the assets in this country, where they currently have 19. And these people, these younger people, want to learn. They want to work with a financial advisor. In fact, they have more interest in working with a financial advisor than people of my age. And we're going to be able to reach them, and they want to be reached and taught digitally, but they still want that human connection and interaction. So I see a lot of advisors who are spending a lot more time with the adult children of their existing client base. I see advisors that are working with younger advisors and bringing them into their practice. I think we're all keenly aware of working with underserved communities that have typically been overlooked or ignored, or our industry has not responded to, perhaps in a way that they could have. So I think that engaging with the adult children of existing clients, integrating more technology, and trying to be compliant and work with, a constantly evolving, changing, and more complex regulatory environment are some of the real strategies that I see advisors employing. And I think that the last thing I want to say is I think that advisors are becoming, and thankfully, much more authentic about their marketing. We can go back just a few years and there were, racing yachts and compasses and Dura columns. And, I mean, how does that speak? How does that speak to anybody about, planning for, their legacy or making sure that their children are educated? So one of the ways that I see advisors who are really moving forward at a rapid pace is authenticity. It's about, why am I in this business and how do I serve my clients? And really, what is the outcome that we can help you achieve? So it's more about that financial planning process. And I think almost being like a financial coach to a family instead of 15 years ago.
So you just said so many smart things there. Technology, obviously, utilizing technology, incorporating AI. When I talk to that comes up on almost every podcast, and really that combination of the human element along with technology is really the holy grail or the win-win. So I couldn't agree more. I love that you called out thinking about and strategizing on how firms and advisors can really start to work with the children of their primary client. And you're seeing more and more of that around incorporating estate planning and tax planning into the financial planning discussion. And that makes it much easier, right, to really engage with maybe the children. I think it's a great
Right, right.
strategy. Are you seeing that too, with your advisors really like focusing in on some of those advanced planning areas to try and engage the children of the primary client?
Oh, absolutely. Another area that has become very important, and especially to people of my age, we are really want to leave legacies. We want to give back to our communities. And I think a great way, and I see this a lot, and it's really risen in terms of being very topical and very important, is charitable giving. And I think that this is another way to engage, not, the way I engage with my adult children and the way clients want to get their adult children involved. It's very interesting as to see how the values from one generation to another, have been passed down, and that importance, for instance, we all have things that are important again. Money represents and is so much to us. And I know for my family, this is, and me personally, and from our firm affiliated advisors, giving back is really important. So that's an area that I think they're really taking a hard look at. And I think it's important to recognize that, something like 60% of Gen X and Gen Y want to learn digitally. So they may want to be learning at their own pace in a format that they're most comfortable with and that, they've grown up with. But I think when it comes time to make those really challenging decisions or have discussions about things, they really want that human connection, that interaction with an advisor. And I think when you couple this huge wealth transfer with the fact that, the majority of, I think, something like 40 some odd percent of advisors are going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, I think there's such an enormous, enormous opportunity for younger advisors in this business. And I think if there's one area that I'm really deeply concerned about, it would be that, what are we as an industry doing to attract that next generation of talent? There's enormous opportunities between this huge transfer of wealth and the retiring, aging population of advisors. And so that's an area that I really wish that I had some fabulous solutions for, but it's something that we really all need to think about is how we bring in that next generation or two of advisors to continue to help people.
Yeah, again, I love that you brought up charitable giving. And just from my perspective as a client of an advisor. My husband and I are finalizing a updated estate plan, and we don't have children. And so the charitable component for us is huge because that's where the majority of anything that we would have left, right, would go. And so our advisor was talking about, why it's better to, she was giving us various options and how to do that. And I think that that's a really important component that I rely heavily on my advisor for. So I think, and you're right, more and more individuals care much more about leaving an impact and leaving things to charity. Even incredibly wealthy individuals are like, yeah, we don't want to leave a lot to our children. We want them to we want them to work for it, right? And so you're seeing that shift that it's and then with the wealth transfer, it's just there's so much opportunity out there. And then to your second point about attracting the next generation of talent, I spend a lot of time talking about this. I'm working with the externship program. There's the FinServ Foundation. There's the BLX internship program. I think a lot of things start with awareness and making sure that individuals know what a financial planner is, and that colleges, high school counselors, they all are better aware or more aware of what financial planning is and how it's a profession more to help people than to sell to people. And that's really been a change, I think, over the last 10 years. So really great trends, really great areas that your advisors are focused on. I think you brought out probably some of the top things. And I love that we're highlighting the charitable giving component. Because again, from my own perspective as a client, that's exactly what I'm focused on. So another shift now is 18 months ago, you did something both exciting and scary. You made the decision to bring on partners. You were the sole proprietor, and many advisors or firms are in a similar situation or contemplating similar thing, deciding to either acquire a firm or bring on partners or to sell their firm. What do they do? So what did you learn in the process that you think really helpful to share for those firms that are contemplating what's next for them?
Well, I think like many advisors and people in general, actually today is my 67th birthday. So this process, yes, I know. It's a little shocking how quickly time.
My God. Well, you look terrific. I would have never known.
Well, thank you. But I think it started about actually right when I turned about 60, 61. I really didn't notice that I was getting older, but the people around me did. And so people started asking me, like, when are you going to retire? And I thought, retire? I mean, I've just gotten through the most challenging parts of my life of raising my children, and now they're adults and they're happy and they're healthy and they're settled in careers they're passionate about. But I really did have to think about that next, that next move, like what was going to happen? What happened if I was suddenly struck, unfortunately, with an illness? Or, I had a plan for my future. So the first thing I think was very emotional. It's like recognizing this had to be done. It's sort of like estate planning, Suzanne, where we know we have to do it, but it seems complex and overwhelming and time consuming. And then we put it off and another year goes by and you're like so embarrassed that you haven't done it. But I started by just thinking about the fact that this had to get done and recognizing it and acknowledging that I was entering another phase of my life. And then I just started to meet with people. It could be someone I met at a conference. It could have been a wholesaler. I, started to look at my advisors and think, well, who might want to transition into a different kind of role? And I will tell you, it was really very daunting and unsettling. And I didn't find anyone that I thought like, yeah, I have confidence. I can see them in this role. I could work with them. I could respect them. We could grow together. I could learn from them. So about 5 years ago, I attended a conference for presidents and senior level executives who were running OSJs. And I bumped into Tom Ripberger, someone that I'd known 20 years ago. I hadn't seen him or spoken to him in about 15 years. And the connection was instant. We resumed as if no time had passed. And I realized or recognized pretty quickly, oh my gosh, this is exactly the kind of leader, the kind of person, the kind of executive who could, obviously he'd been running a very successful firm. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be wonderful? Like I loved his energy. We liked each other personally. And he introduced me to Trisha Qualley, who he had worked with for the last decade. And it just seemed like almost unbelievably ideal. Trisha is in her just became a mother herself at 36. Tom is in his very early 50s. And so there's three generations. We bring three very different skill sets, very different experiences. And I have to say that what started out as an incredibly daunting, almost very unsettling and upsetting realization and recognition that I had to do this planning has turned out to be really the most inspiring, incredible experience. It is just wonderful to be part of a team of like-minded people. I've learned so much from them. And so anybody who's contemplating succession planning, like jump in, talk to people, meet them, think out of the box. Who do you connect with? Who has skill sets that you're lacking? Who can bring something to the table? We're past the point in our lives of wishing we were better in certain areas. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And finding those complementary skill sets and being open to learning, it has really been, it went from being daunting and uncertain to the best thing I've ever done. And I have such confidence, and the power of the three of us is exponentially greater than what I ever could have achieved on my own.
That is what a great story and what a great example. And I love that you started off with like recognizing step one, it's like step one, recognize you have a problem. Recognizing that you, right? Recognizing that you are in a different phase of your life and your career, and that can be really hard. But just saying that, listen, I do need to start thinking, I don't want to work this hard forever. I don't want to run this business forever. That is incredibly important, I think, in order to go into the process with the right mindset. And then how you incorporated networking and talking to people and just having that part of your overall strategy when you are out in the industry, right? So not being shy about it, really understanding that that's got to be part of your elevator pitch, right? And then I love that you did find some, also too, sometimes it's like, you want to hire people that are like you, and you went out and found two people that have different skill sets than you do. So and you're right. We're all, when you get to this point where you want to bring on a succession plan, you gotta know at this point what you're not great at, right? and trying to find that. I think that is such great tangible advice, and I'm so happy that you brought them on, and that now you're enjoying your life more too, right? So it all is this circle of life, right? And it's so important to find those right partners. So thanks for sharing that story. It's fantastic. Great example. So I can't believe it, but we're actually at the end of yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to say, I'm here at a conference with Osaic in New Orleans. And one of the things that's been a big topic is, for advisors looking to buy and sell practices. And the majority of these things happen due to networking. And so it's not like, going, to a site that lists practices for sale. I think the other thing that we need to recognize, advisors should really keep in mind as they plan for their succession, the skills and the traits and the experience that got me to where I am are not going to be the same things that my firm needed moving forward. And so, it's very common for entrepreneurs to reach a point in the growth of their companies, whether it's a financial services practice or a technology startup, where you're going to need a different set of skills to take that company from the phase that it's in to that next phase. And I think advisors want to keep that in mind as well, that maybe the skill sets that got them to where they are, it might take a different set of skill sets and a different type of person to take their company to that next level of growth.
Yeah, that is, and we're seeing that throughout the industry with some key individuals leaving key roles. It's not anything that you want to think that would happen to you or that, but it is absolutely the case. And I think just being honest with yourself is just like step one. So again, we're at the end of the podcast. I can't believe it. Could go on and on talking with you. So the last question I ask everyone is, with the title and the theme of the podcast focused on the future in mind, what is your last line? What's the one key takeaway to leave our audience with?
I want everyone to really listen to their intuition, their gut. I want them to be able to execute on what they believe and they know and they think is going to be right, as opposed to and blocking out the noise. Just listen to yourself, have confidence in what you're doing. It will never, never send you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you and I are like sisters from another mother. I am so big on listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. And then that is a fantastic last line. So, Rita, thank you so much for being my guest today, and happy birthday, by the way, and for sharing your thoughts around succession planning, top trends affecting planning, and for being one of the trailblazing women changing the narrative in our industry. I'm Suzanne Syracuse. Thanks for listening, and I hope this episode leaves you feeling even more excited to be focused on the future.